everyone, I'm Amanda and today I'm going to teach you how to knit. So first off, we're going to learn how to cast on, which is when you're starting from scratch and you just have needles and yarn and two hands. Okay, so like I said, the first thing we're going to learn is casting on. So you need yarn and you have to pull out a little bit like this. Well, when you're doing a project, you're probably going to need more, but since we're just practicing, you only need about a foot or two. And so the first thing you have to do in order to cast on is make a slip knot. This is true for every type of casting on that you need to do. Okay. So how to make a slip knot is you have your yarn and you wrap it around your two fingers like so twice, and then you pull it through. This can be a little tricky sometimes, like this. And the great thing about slip knots is you can change their size. So you just have to pull on both of the ends, or you can pull on the actual loop to make it bigger or smaller depending on how big your needle is. So the next thing you do is you grab your needle. This is a US size 7 or 4.5 millimeters. And you put it in the loop and you pull the two ends to make sure it's snug, so not going to fall off if you go like this, but it's also not too tight, because if it is too tight, you won't be able to knit well with it. Okay, so now that we've made our slip knot, we need to cast on. There are different methods of casting on, but the one I'm teaching you today is long tail cast on. So you make sure that you have the tail side, which is the side that ends closer, on the left, and then the side that's attached to the ball on the right. And this can be a bit tricky at the beginning if you're just a beginner, but you want to make sure that you put your fingers like this and then you open them inside between the two strands. And then you can grab them at the bottom underneath so that you have the tail on this side and the side that's attached to the ball on this side. Now what you can do, which might look a little bit confusing, is you go like this, you put the needle in here, you hook that piece on your index finger, and you put it back through the loop on your thumb. Then you let go with your thumb and put it back through in between the two strands and pull. I'm going to do this a couple more times just to make sure it's clear. Okay, so now that we've cast on 5 more stitches, and the slip stitch counts as another stitch, so we have 6 stitches in total, we have to turn the needle around, because when you're knitting normally, you have to always start knitting where the yarn is that's attached to the ball. And we can ignore this tail yarn for now. Now, we're going to start learning the basic knit stitch. So what you're going to do, there's a little nursery rhyme that I use to remember how to knit. It's called in through the front door, meaning you stick the needle into the first stitch so that it's inside. And then dance around the back so the yarn goes around the right hand needle, out through the window, and then off jumps Jack is the last part of the rhyme, and that means that you drop this thing that used to be a stitch. So then we just keep doing that, in through the front door, dance around the back, out through the window, and off jumps Jack. You keep doing that until you reach the end of the row. Sometimes it can be a little bit tight because casting on, especially if it's your first time, can be accidentally done very tightly. That's fine. And then you just turn it around again because you want to start where the yarn is attached to the ball. You turn it around and you do the same thing, knit stitch. And you do that until the end of the row. Once you've figured this out, you're knitting. And when you do consistent rows of just knitting over and over again, it's called a garter stitch. Okay, so now that we're on the other side, we have to go in through the front door, dance around the back, out through the window, and off jumps Jack. And then we just keep repeating this sequence of steps until we finish the row. Also, this type of knitting is called English style because I'm holding the yarn on the right side. However, it is possible to hold it on the left side if you feel more comfortable with that. And that's called continental. And it's a similar process. You stick the needle in, you hook the yarn, you bring it back. That step is a little harder. And then you just bring the old stitch off. And you just knit a row. This is what it should look like after a couple of rows. And this is called garter stitch. So now I'm going to show you how to purl. Purling is similar to knitting, but it's different in the way that you hold the yarn and the way that the needle goes into the stitch. So remember that when we're knitting a stitch, we go in through the front door. But when we are purling a stitch, we have to go in from the middle and go out the front like this. So instead of the right needle being behind the left one, it's gonna go in front. And that means that the yarn is also in front of the needle, not behind. Okay. So it's the same process even though you stick the needle in from a different direction. You still have to wrap it around, hook it back through from where you came from, and bring the old stitch off. And then you put it in, wrap it around, pull it back out, and pull it off. In, around, out, off. So the difference with purl stitches is that compared to knit stitches, when you do a knit row, it is flat on the side that you knit it on and bumpy on the other side. And a purl stitch is the opposite. It's bumpy on the side that you purled it on, but it's flat on the other side. This can make a very smooth piece of work, so you can do one row of knit and one row of purl so that you have all smooth on one side and all bumpy on the other side. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to cast off. So the easiest way to cast off, you need to know how to do a basic knit stitch, meaning you go in through the front door, you take your piece of yarn that's attached to the ball, not the tail, you wrap it around, hook it back from where it came in, and you take it off. Now you do this to one more stitch, so you knit 2 stitches, and then this is the slightly trickier part. You have to take your left needle here, and you have to stick it through both of those. You wrap the yarn around as if you're knitting a regular stitch, and then you pull it through. This can be complicated because there are 2 stitches there, so it's a bit tighter. Then you pull those 2 old ones off. So then you just keep doing this. You knit one more, you stick the left hand needle through both of the stitches, like so. You wrap the yarn around, hook it back through, and pull them off. So you just repeat this until you reach the end of the row. And then when you get to the last stitch, you do the same thing. You stick the left hand needle through both of them, wrap the yarn around, and pull it through. But then what do you do with this last stitch? Well, you can make it bigger, and then you'll want to cut the yarn that's attached to the ball off. I don't have scissors with me at the moment, so I'm not going to do that. But then when you do cut it off, you take the short end and you put it through this large stitch to make sure it doesn't get dropped, like this. And you pull it through, except it will be cut off, so it won't be another loop like this. And then you're going to pull it, the part that's still attached to the piece of work that you've done, you're going to pull it tight. And then you're done. Congratulations!